Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. Take a look at this week's top stories, including the death of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Bob Christie from Capital Media Services, Howie Fisher, also from Capital Media Services, and Jim Small from the Arizona Mirror. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Bob, I'm going to start with you, obviously. Big story nationwide. Big story in Arizona. Charlie Kirk, a resident of Arizona, Turning Point USA starts, based in Arizona. It's a big story.
It's a huge story. It's a horrible tragedy for Arizona, for the country, for democracy in general. This is a young man, 31 years old, married, a couple kids, who's built this quite amazing populist political organization designed, focused on college kids initially. It's expanded since then. He's a big supporter and cheerleader for Donald Trump. He's built this huge, very powerful organization. You know, to have a political assassination like this, it's so troubling that it's hard to wrap your arms around it.
How did Turning Point USA in general, Charlie Kirk in particular, get to be so influential?
Well, it started out with the original Turning Point USA, which was, Bob points out, was an organization designed to motivate the youth. Originally, it sort of faltered to the extent that, you know, he backed certain very conservative candidates, Kari Lake being a prime example, and said, you know, we're going to put all our strength behind it, and then it didn't show up. So he sort of shifted to the point where they're doing what they call ballot chasing. And because so many people in Arizona vote early, you can find a list of the people who have not sent their ballots. And if you send people to those homes, you can collect an awful lot of ballots from people who you think are going to vote your way. This also ingratiated him with the Republican Party because they're the folks who haven't done that kind of thing. Obviously, he's gotten a national audience. You know, this is a guy who was campaigning for the president, campaigned with the president, and has become also sort of, you can find him everywhere, particularly going to college campus and doing exactly what he was doing in Utah, where he says to kids, okay, prove me wrong.
Yeah, and Jim, the emphasis is on the kids. Youth, I mean, he really had a way of getting the youth vote or getting the youth attention as far as politics and especially right of center politics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably more than right of center, I'd go, you know, into far right politics. That was really what they were, what the organization has been about. You know, it's something that, you know, I think he started when he was 18 years old in college himself. And, you know, saw a need basically to go out and try to coalesce, you know, young voters and move them to the right and get them to support Republicans and conservatives and those ideals. And it really did grow into this, you know, monumentally large and really influential organization, you know, up and down Republican politics. You know, I think that he was the face of the organization. He was the, you know, the primary person who was out there both doing these public events like what was going on in Utah and what has happened at colleges across the country, and at the same time was also out there raising money from very deep-pocketed conservatives, which is how this organization was able to grow as large as it was. And you know, they have done all kinds of conferences across the country, you know, these big giant galas, these big events, you know, lots of media, podcasts and web shows and all kinds of things. I mean, it really is a small part of the conservative media empire is Turning Point USA, and Charlie Kirk was at the forefront of that.
Republicans, the right, have tried for a long time to connect with young people, to connect with youth. He did, and he did in a big way. Why did he succeed, and how did he succeed where others failed?
Well, there's a couple dynamics at play, and you kind of have to be real careful when you're talking about Charlie Kirk in the, you know, 48 hours after his assassination. He played to some basic conservative views, but he also kind of touched on some anti-woke stuff, you know, and not, you know, did not believe that transgender rights was a legitimate thing, and that and gay rights and you know, a few other hot button Republican issues, and that resonated. There's a, you know, some would say there might be a tint of racism behind it, against the anti-DEI, appealing to young white males who might feel disaffected because they don't necessarily get the same, they don't think they're getting the same leg up that minorities may get now. There was, that was kind of under the scenes, but you could see it happening, and it helped build his organization. One of the things that I really am wondering about now is what happens to Turning Point in the USA? Who is, because he connected so well with people, and that's so rare. Donald Trump has it. Obama has it still. But Charlie could really touch and grab people's imagination and get them really interested in something that, as you said, is rare to be able to get through to college students to do that. And I don't see another face. Maybe Jake Hoffman has kind of got it, but that's an older thing. Who could do that with the young people like
And
Charlie did.
you talk about, like somebody like Jake Hoffman, who's actually benefited financially because Charlie's group would put a lot of money into the ballot chasing and some of the other stuff. But you'd have to have a certain kind of personality. And as ultra, if you want to call it that, some of Charlie's positions were, he tended to do it with a smile. I don't know how else to express it. In other words, he wasn't hostile. Somebody like Jake Hoffman is sort of in your face, you're wrong, you're an idiot kind of thing. And so I don't know who fits into that, whether somebody in the organization. I don't know whether his wife takes over, although what's really interesting is this is a guy who basically said the women should stay home and not have a career, so I don't know where that even fits in.
Jim, will we see, what kind of effect are we going to see from this? Is this something that will still be somewhere near top of mind or in mind for voters for the political season next year? How does this impact, and we'll stick to Arizona for the most part here, how is this, or will it impact come next November?
I don't know that it will. I do think that a lot of it will depend maybe on what Turning Point USA's influence is going to be going forward. He was the face and the driving force behind that organization. So filling that role is going to, as Howie was saying, is going to be incredibly difficult and is going to be, I think, a monumental challenge for that organization once they're, kind of past the initial stages of grieving and have to, kind of look at how do they keep that a going concern and what does it turn into. I think my initial thought is what's going to happen more is we're going to see what is the response going to be from conservatives, from Republicans, from the Trump administration. They immediately blamed liberals and blamed the left for this murder, for this assassination. And as we found out, as we're learning more about the actual shooter, it seems that at best there was no clear ideology. And most of this is someone who came from a Trump-loving family, who is in Utah, someone who, by all accounts, seems to kind of fit the target audience for Turning Point USA more so than.
Except for reports, though, that he had come out against Charlie Kirk at a family gathering and was very much against his position and against him, and noted that he was coming to area.
Yes, but you have to understand that Charlie Kirk, maybe while he was very influential, and Turning Point is very influential within Republican circles, it is not as though 100% of Republicans and conservatives were behind him. There are a lot of schisms within the Republican Party, within the conservative movement, and there are a lot of conservative groups that do not like Charlie Kirk and did not like him, and some that had spent the recent weeks very openly attacking him for some of the positions he'd been taking, especially with regard to the Epstein files and Trump. There's been a huge gulf within the Republican Party, and so it's really unclear what happened. And I think that it's not in any of our best interest to make presumptions about what motivated this, if there were any politics behind it at all. But I do think that we've already seen statements from the Trump administration and from other Republicans in office who have basically said we are going to use this as the pretext to go after our political enemies. And I think that is the kind of thing that may ultimately have more of an influence in 2026.
Well, and the point of the schism is important because it already does exist in Arizona. I mean, you have the Freedom Caucus. They're backing trying to get rid of the current state school superintendent. They're trying to get rid of Republicans who are running on the Corporation Commission. And so it may fall that even with or without Charlie Kirk, without Turning Point, you may still have the idea of the Freedom Caucus and that schism there. Now, can the Republicans unite around some theme about Democrats and lefties bad? I don't know. But I think that schism is still going to be there with or without Charlie Kirk.
Right, and I'll point out, this young man is 23, 24 years old, we don't know much about him yet, but he would fit into the school shooter type of lone, disaffected young man who does these things. He maybe just got fixated on Charlie Kirk for who knows why, but I think politics is maybe a leap too far for him.
Yeah, last question real quickly here. Does this event change political discourse in Arizona, around the country? Does it leave a mark?
Well, it leaves a mark, no doubt. It scares people. I mean, we've had Minnesota lawmakers killed. Governor of Pennsylvania, they tried to burn down his house. Obviously, President Trump was a victim of at least one and another attempted assassination attempt. This is bad for democracy all the way around. It's going to scare regular people from running for office, even for school board or the state legislature. And you end up with people who, aren't scared, and that's scary.
But the problem is that
They
it
should be
hasn't,
scared, yeah.
But it hasn't chilled the conversation. We've seen it here in Arizona. People like Rachel Ketchel, who's a state lawmaker, putting out.
Right, but it gets more
vile.
extremist and makes it worse instead of better.
Well, that's the point. So the question is, normally after this, you'd have people saying, "Let's keep it down." This seems to be the reverse. And in fact, what's funny is that the governor was talking yesterday about chilling the speech, and I said, "Excuse me, you've used terms like dangerous and extremist when talking about Republicans. Will you stop using them?" And she said, "Well, I'm not here to point fingers." So even she doesn't intend to back off when she wants to call someone an extremist.
Well, last word on this, Jim. I mean, will this keep people from running for office? Will this affect the political dialogue, or do we just move on like we seem to do always with these kinds of events?
I don't know, but I kind of agree with with what was said earlier. I think that this seems to be emboldening more like in a very unusual way, almost more calls for extremism from certain elements of of the kind of the political class and these and political activists, and I think it is a dangerous time, and I think that there's a lot that could be done, that might be done down the road to really clamp down on people who are going to get blamed for what happened, whether they were directly involved or not.
Jim, sticking with you, this is an Arizona Mirror story. John Gillette. Who is John Gillette, and why do House Democrats think he should face an ethics complaint?
John Gillette is a Republican member of the state House from Kingman up in Mojave County, and he has spent the better part of this month on X, what used to be Twitter, posting all about how much he does not like Muslims, and using some incredibly profane and derogatory language about Muslims, attacking Governor Hobbs, because at one point she had met with a Muslim community leader, and basically calling people who practice the faith of Islam savages and terrorists, and saying that they should go back to their home countries. And he used a colorful epithet that Donald Trump famously used back in his first term.
Yeah. Any Republicans thinking that there should be an ethics complaint regarding all this?
Well, for some reason, Jim's folks were unable to get hold of Steve Montenegro or any other top Republican leaders for comment on this. It's not surprising because, we've come to a place in politics where, if this had been 10 years ago and John Gillette had said that, it doesn't matter if he's from a deep red county like Mojave County, he was going to get either talked to and told he needed to resign, or probably would face a censure vote in the state house. As a Republican, they've got, 4-seat majority. They want to keep that, all of them, and I don't see him getting a lot of penalties from the Republican-led ethics committee.
Well, the conversations have become coarser over the years. I mean, Jim's seen this, Bob's seen this. I started the Capitol in '82, and you didn't have this sort of very personal attack, not only on each other. The issue of Annalise Ortiz, get ethics complaint in the Senate for what she posted, but it's become personal. It's become this sort of trench warfare, and it doesn't help anyone. And what there might be is there might be a complaint that that the Democrats file. Will they have a hearing? I don't know. I mean, for John Gillette, again, pointing out that his is a deep red district out there, he may say, bring it on. I'm happy to explain why Muslims are bad people.
And we have all seen this.
Yeah, and I assume the defense will be, well, it's the First Amendment. He has the right to say all this stuff, and they'll just let it slide. I do want to say that there are a considerable number of lawmakers and other politicians in this state who are not embracing this still.
Yeah.
And we don't want to paint too wide a brush. I don't think.
All right, Jim, Tom Horne, Superintendent of Public Instruction, wants a particular state Supreme Court justice off of a case regarding, again, we're talking once again about English language. And so, talk to us about the case. Why does he not want Bill Montgomery, Justice Bill Montgomery, to be a justice in this case?
All right, so the case involves multilingual instruction in Arizona. Arizona, ages ago, before voters said that they couldn't do it, schools had dual language instruction to help the kids teach English, where it was essentially, or a lot of times it would just be even almost the entire day would be in Spanish instruction to try to help students catch up on their English and at the same time still learn math and science and history and reading and stuff like that. The State Board of Education has approved a couple of ways, sort of kind of, I guess, around that voter-approved law that allow for some kind of multilingual stuff. And they've approved it. Tom Horne does not like it. He's been a foe of bilingual education for pretty much his entire political career. And so he sued school districts and has filed lawsuits over it. They've gotten tossed out of court. And essentially, the courts have said, no, you don't have the authority to sue. The State Board of Education can sue. You cannot. And so he wants the Arizona Supreme Court to weigh in and say, yes, you have the ability to sue, so he can go back to the beginning and actually do this case. He doesn't want Bill Montgomery to hear the case if the Supreme Court takes it up, which they haven't yet, because back in 2012, I think, Bill Montgomery was, his office opened an investigation into Tom Horne because Tom Horne was accused of violating a whole host of campaign finance laws, and his campaign was. And Montgomery had the case briefly before he kicked it to another county attorney, and because of that, Tom Horne says, no, he's biased and prejudiced and shouldn't be allowed to weigh in.
But hasn't he been involved in other Horne cases? Has there anything been involved since then?
Well, not really. I mean, there was one case that involved a private client when Tom Horne was out in private practice where he had asked Bill Montgomery to recuse himself, which he did. Now, what makes this tricky is at the time, Bill Montgomery was the Maricopa County attorney. He had this report from the FBI. And normally what you do is you send it under procedures to a hearing officer. But then Bill still gets a final word. Bill made the conclusion long before the hearing officer said anything, said, well, he's obviously guilty. And it took that case going through a trial judge, the Supreme Court, to say, no, you shouldn't have been on there. So Tom is saying he's obviously prejudiced toward me. I don't know, the question of something that happened while Tom Horne was running for Attorney General in 2010. It's 2024, 2025 now with the 2026 election coming up. I don't know. I don't even know that you actually do yourself any favors. If you're trying, there's an old saying, if you're going to kill a king, you better make sure you do it.
And the Supreme Court basically said, we're okay here.
We're okay here, yeah, absolutely. And I think I can understand the reason. Of course, they didn't explain their order, but it has been 12 to 15 years. Bill Montgomery was a prosecutor at the time. That was his job, to review these things and to investigate them. He's been a justice for 7 years now. Excuse me, Justice Montgomery, if I got the numbers wrong.
I think so, yeah.
And there's been no sign of any problem there's no sign of bias from the justice since he's been on the court. I've talked to him a few times over the years since he's been a justice, and it doesn't seem to be anywhere near as political as it was in Maricopa County. He's straight down the line on the law.
But there is a precedent. You remember the abortion case about whether, in fact, they were going to enforce the 15-week law. Planned Parenthood initially sought to have him recused based on some things he said, again, as county attorney, when he's very political. And originally he said no, and then he finally said yes, and he took himself off. So, this isn't like this is totally out of the blue.
With the exception of the abortion case, which Bill Montgomery has very strong anti-abortion views, and he had voiced them publicly multiple times. This is a little different.
Jim, Justine Watsack, this might be the last time we talk about this particular lawsuit. Apparently, she has said, I'm out of here. I'm done.
Yeah, this is that $8 million lawsuit. I think we've talked about it for several months now as this has been unfolding in federal court in Tucson. But this has to do with her citation for driving twice the speed limit allegedly in Tucson, and how that got. I guess that she got a citation, and then how the story made it into the local media, which then turned into statewide media, and the allegations of all kinds of conspiracies and attempts to personally injure her. But it seems as though that case, she may be dropping that case, I think in large part because she can't afford to pay her attorneys, which is why her attorneys had asked to get off the case.
And that's a piece of it. Not only that, she didn't show up in court under the way the federal courts rule. Dennis Willenchuk was attorney, put in a motion, I'd like to withdraw. Well, you can't do it until the judge says okay. Judge Jennifer Zip said to Justine, you will be in court. And Justine not only wasn't in court, she was at a Turning Point USA event.
Yes, she was.
At the same time, and then her excuse was, well, Your Honor, I get things confused. And I think at certain points she said
having personal family health crisis.
Yes.
Which seems the way she said it, that it's her own health crisis, but who knows, because she doesn't have to tell us. Justine Wodsack was trying to make hay with this. She spent a lot of taxpayer money defending this. Dennis Willenchuk is on the hook for whatever bill that she can't pay. The city of Tucson has had their lawyers involved, and she's accused the Tucson police and the Tucson City Council and everyone who has ever said anything bad against her in Tucson.
They're all out to get her.
They're all out to get her. And now, if this judge accepts this, of course, the judge has to allow it, or might say, well, come on in, let's talk sanctions first, because I don't know if you had a personal health crisis or not, but you have a calendar, and you know what day it was.
Actually, what has happened since is that the judge finally allowed her to withdraw it and basically dissolved the request for the order to show cause and the sanctions. So at this point, as you say, maybe we won't have to talk about Justine Wodsack
Well,
anymore.
yes, and when we do, that'll be a whole new adventure. Jim, the governor and COVID-19 vaccinations. Interesting combination, interesting news this week.
Yeah, Governor Hobbs issued an executive order this week to expand access to COVID-19 vaccinations. The federal government, of course, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services had restricted it and said basically if you're older than the age of 65, you can go get one. Everyone else needs to have a prescription to get it. The governor's executive order essentially attempts to work around that and say that no, they're available to everybody. The order actually expands far beyond COVID-19 vaccines into pretty much every other vaccine as well. But the idea in her statement was that Arizonans deserve to make their own healthcare choices, not to have the government come in and essentially with not a whole lot of basis or some pretty thin basis, roll back the access to these vaccines at a time when we have new variants that are spreading and, they remain dangerous for people, particularly those with other health concerns.
Right.
And what this was essentially a model after some other states have done this. We saw it in Connecticut and a few other states, where if you need a prescription, for example, CVS will not give you a COVID vaccine without a prescription. Sometimes, and so, Fry's won't give it to you even if you're over 65 without a prescription now, because everybody's gotten paranoid over Robert Kennedy and the FDA and the CDC. So this is sort of a delicate way of doing it, telling the health department, you will issue a standing order, which is a blanket prescription that basically says, you want one, you've got a prescription. Now, there is a fail-safe on that. It requires you then to go to your pharmacist, and the pharmacist fills out a checklist to see if, in fact, you should be having it, because you have not seen a doctor by the time you got that prescription.
This is the same standing order that Governor Ducey and former Health Director Kara Christ used initially when COVID vaccines rolled out 4 years ago. They're broadly adopted. They were broadly adopted 4 years ago. I don't know what the percentage of people who get them regularly now. I get one every year. My wife, who is 2 years younger than me, was not able to get one because she's 63 and I'm older than 65. But
Are you sure your wife wants you to tell us?
We figured it out, Bob.
yeah, and so this gives folks who are in that, whether they're worried about their kids getting sick or whether they're worried about them getting sick and giving it to their parents who are older, this gives them the option to go get a vaccine that they've received for years, hasn't had any bad effects on them, they want one.
Real quickly, help, hurt, no effect on re-election campaign for the governor.
But this COVID executive
Yes.
order? I don't think it's going to matter at all.
What do you think?
Campaign won't be about that.
What do you think, Bob?
It won't have a very small, minuscule number of people will care in a year.
Well, I think it helps because, remember, this doesn't require you to get a vaccine. This isn't like some of the orders that Doug Ducey issued about you stay at home, you wear a mask, closing down businesses. This is simply, if you want the vaccine, you can get the vaccine. So I think that this certainly helps with a lot of folks in Arizona.
All right, Howie, since you are the reporter emeritus, as you constantly like to remind us here.
I'm old.
Bob Corbin.
Yes.
Who is Bob Corbin and why is he such an influential figure in Arizona's history?
Well, Bob Corbin most recently was the Attorney General of the state, was also involved in prosecuting a certain Governor Evan Mecham. But before that, he was a Maricopa County Attorney. He was a Maricopa County Supervisor. He also spent a lot of time up at the Superstition searching for the last
Yes,
ducks
he
in
did.
mine.
Yes.
But he was a very open person. Look, in the day, I could just go into the Attorney General's office, go up to his office, hey, what's going on? Very open, very willing to talk with the press, and very willing to say, I don't care what people's politics are. The other thing that, as a journalist, I admired him for is he formed something called the Open Meeting Law Enforcement Team, OMLET. And anytime you had a problem, when I was down in Bisbee and had a problem with the Bisbee City Council, I'd call up, and Steve Twist, who was his chief deputy, I'd say, hey, Steve, these people don't seem to think the open meeting law applies to this. And Steve would get on the phone, and that ended the problem.
And we should also mention he prosecuted Ernesto Miranda of Miranda Rights fame, and also prosecuted the suspects in the Don Bowles car bombing. Died this week, and a long life and a very active and adventurous life. Bob Corbin. All right, gentlemen, good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.